Tomb Raider 3 Adventures of Lara Croft. This title got released in 1998, and it's third in the core design's timeline of Tomb Raider. When I got it, I never finished it the first time round. I think I got through at least close to half the levels in the game. And, like previous games, you get basics of what the game is about, usually in the opening. And this one opens with a meteor crashing to Earth ages ago. And then in modern day, scientists find the crash site in Antarctica. Mainly because you find they find what looks like Moai statues there. Now, it opens with Laura actually hunting down one of the items, the pieces of the artifact, of the meteorite. The thing is, she doesn't know it yet. And it's a game that if you don't necessarily play the tutorial, the Lara Croft section, in Croft Manor, you are literally thrust into the action. I mean, it does give you some learning curve with some things. And, now this game actually does add some new things to Laura's repertoire. Crawling, for one thing. Monkey bar movement. And, she can sprint in this one. And that does come in handy with certain points of the game. But I digress a little here. You have levels that actually have multiple paths too. Some levels have multiple paths to get through. But as Laura is in the jungles of India, finding a temple, and then going down the river Ganges, now we have a character, you're introduced to these items, and some very clever mechanics. This is also the first game that has something like quicksand in it. Yep, that makes it fun. And some pretty nasty characters. Also, most of the game sections have bosses in them, which is in turn something a little bit new. I mean, not all of the sections in the first, well, there were semi-bosses in certain sections of the game. Nothing, quote, big in the first one, and not until the end of the game. Same could be said about the second one, because there wasn't really much in, quote, bosses in that one. I mean, each section didn't have a, quote, boss battle, is what I'm meaning. This one, there was actually more, quote, boss battles in it. Well, after she, quote, defeats the boss in India, she meets up with Dr. Willard, who is seeking these 4 artifacts down because he's basically trying to figure out what's going on with this meteorite and what it does. So Laura agrees to find the other items. And so, and this was where it was a little bit inventive in that part, and they didn't bring it back. Laura could choose what order she goes in. Meaning, your next three locations are Nevada, USA, an island in the South Pacific, or London. So you could choose them in any order. One, depending, like if you read on the wiki for the game, on Wikipedia, they seem to hint that the proper order would be South Pacific, London, and then Nevada. Of course, a lot of players, they prefer doing Nevada first because Nevada features the quote customary in the first three Lara Croft games, lose your weapon level. Yeah, Lara goes through the Nevada desert, infiltrates a military base, well, fails to it. She gets thrown into a military prison. She escapes and ends up going to Area 51. So, not surprising. In South Pacific, the island has a bit of a cannibalistic tribe on it. As is discovered, some of them actually seem to know English. So some can talk with, as Laura talks with one. Laura goes to the gets to the village, then gets through the crash site, and this game actually has some puzzling elements for that section, including what a lot of people don't, I think, catch on to at first. I didn't necessarily catch on to it first. And I will note that I only got part way through these levels when I first played the game. Never tackled London when I first tried it. Something happened, I lost interest in the game or something and never got back to it. So, time does that. You want to get back to it, but you never do. Something like that. Yeah, a map you get at the beginning at the end of the first level in the South Pacific gives you the proper path to get through the quicksand. And then you run into dinosaurs. And again, people that can be helpful to you. As long as you don't attack them. Yep, we get dinosaurs, velociraptors, campies, and a T-Rex. You have your T-Rex encounter. Again, this is the last time the T-Rex is encountered in the Core Designs timeline. And eventually you get into the temple area, but it's sort of sealed off, so you have to take the alternate way in, which is down the River Ganges. No, not the River Ganges, not there. But the area is called Madubu Gorge. And again, this is one of those levels that has some alternate paths in it. I mean, in the India section, River Ganges had two paths you could take. One with an off-roader, one that was just, quote, running. Of course, one path has more secrets. This is actually a level where you can get more than the amount of secrets that are quote accessible in the level. Because once you choose a path, you can't get all the secrets. You also can't go all the way back to the beginning. Same with Madubu Gorge, because certain paths you can't get all the secrets on. And it's pretty daring to get all the secrets on that level too. But you then get into the temple. I think it's called the Temple of Punai. And you defeat the godlike character that's there, which is a tricky battle. You have to have the right weapon. Well, any weapon will do. It just takes a lot of shots. After that, you move on to another. Again, once you defeat that guy, you can again choose your path. Of course, if you go in Nevada first, then South Pacific, your only choice is London. And when you look at how this can be done, there's about 6 combinations for those levels. You go into London, and this area has some of the biggest areas in it, as well as some optional things to do. But the first level, I think it's called yeah, I think it's called Thames Wharf. This actually has one of the most amazing shortcuts if you could pull it off. It's a shortcut that literally skips a majority of the level. And you can still access all the secrets in the level. Which is literally an amazing time saver if you do it. I did it without doing the shortcut, and it took me over an hour to get through the level. And that's actually one of the clever things. I mean, that the programmers managed to put in some sort of shortcut that allows you to skip most of that level. Now, in the other parts of the level, you got some devious shortcuts. In other levels, you have some devious little shortcuts put in there. Well, devious little secrets. One that's very hard to, if you don't do something right, you can't get it, I think. And a good part of this level can involve stealth. Of course, as you work your way through it, again, you get groups that you will meet and that could be helpful at a certain point. Actually, one secret actually involves letting one get to a certain point before you, but not so far before you that you can't get at it. But there's other neat stuff. You have a boss battle then in London, which in some ways is a race to the top, and a character you can't kill directly. And the only way to do it is to actually electrocute them. Of course, depending how that plays out, you have to also then shut off the electricity and get the item you need. And then we're off to Antarctica, where they introduce another fun mechanic in the game. Water that will kill you if you remain in it too long. Literally, it's freezing cold. And Laura finds out that the meteor has found out by this point that the meteorite's radiation is causing serious mutations. As she refers to one worker when she finally gets to Willard on the first level, that the worker looked like the Brundlefly. From there, we see Willard's true colors. Laura must work her way through some very tricky levels. The RX mines, which are tricky enough to get through, because it also involves maneuvering on a mine cart, which is a combination of striking the right levers at the right times, controlling the cart's speed, as well as making sure you don't get knocked out or anything like that. Yeah, if you don't do this right, you'll rack up your death count. And then the lost city of Tanos, which involves getting past some tricky areas. And again, this level is home to one of the most outrageous to get secrets. And eventually you will get into the meteorite cavern, where you must fight the now mutated Willard, who is he has one-hit kills. Of course, once you defeat him and get out of there, you have reached the end of the game. But there was another surprise that they had put in this game. You basically have to get all the secrets to unlock a secret unlockable level, which is actually back in London. And this level is more or less a tour de force of acrobatics, skills, and such, culminating in an ending in which you have to beat two characters, a guard and a dog. That's it. And you only unlock this if you get all the secrets in all the levels. Well, if you get the secret count, as well as one particular secret, I believe. See, this is where it is. It's like you got the secrets in the River Ganges level. You can grab all the secrets. You'll leave the level with more secrets than are allotted for you finding. So later on, it just affects your count. So if you miss one, it is quite possible, if you've gotten all the extra ones in the River Ganges, all of them plus the extra in the River Ganges, you can actually unlock this secret level without grabbing all the secrets. Amazing, isn't it? This was a very fun game. I enjoyed playing it, finally playing it all the way through. I do think one of the most trying levels they've ever created was in this game, too. That being, well, that's a toss-up between River Ganges and Madubu Gorge. Some would put Lud's Gate in there as well. And they may have a point, because there's a lot of rehashing on that one. But it's a pretty good game, and I would recommend anyone playing it and getting it, especially if you are a fan of the original Lara Croft series. I mean, she was more badass in the original series. The Crystal Dynamics timeline does still keep some of that, but you also have her, mm, pondering over some of the things. She's not necessarily in that series ready to shoot humans. And to be honest, I can't blame her on that. I think that was like one of the quote biggest complaints of in the second one. Of course, in the fourth one, no, she's doing that again. But there's reasons. I mean, it doesn't highly just rely on fighting a lot of humans in that one. That's all I'm going to say about Tomb Raider 3. If you've enjoyed listening to this, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, I appreciate that. And thank you for listening to my retrospective on Tomb Raider 3. Have fun all. Bye.